When I think of Mai Tais, I think of my husband's favorite drinking partner. I don't necessarily think of Amy Trask, the Princess of Darkness. Amy, what is your drink of choice? Do you drink at all, or are you a sparkling water kind of person?
Oh, no, I'm not a sparkling water kind of girl. I do like sparkling water, and I really do need to drink a lot more water because people say you're supposed to, but I don't drink enough water. I don't know that I have a drink of choice, but I do enjoy a beer.
Yeah, okay. Because we're celebrating here today. It's Mimosa Friday in the Rich Eisen Show. We try to have a good time when I'm here because they have to deal with Rich all the time. And Kara Henderson-Sneed is here. She spent the last hour with us. We're talking about the parade, the behind-the-scenes things, and what have you, all that has to do with the Rams. So we thought we'd celebrate a little bit.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to the two of you talk, and the last bit that you talked about really resonated with me and speaks to the journalists and the women that you are. Coaching players up when they say something or a coach says something, and you take that moment to say, wait a minute, I don't think you mean to say that. That just speaks to the women you are, to the humans you are, to the professionals you are. That really resonated with me. And by the way, I did know that it was Mimosa Friday, and I kind of thought the Rich Eisen Show might have had a mimosa delivered to me so I could drink it while we're talking, but there hasn't been a mimosa knock on the door.
That's so
man,
funny.
that is a missed opportunity.
Didn't go through. That's our bad, Amy.
Missed opportunity.
Sorry, Amy.
The order got canceled.
Did Al drink mimosas? What was Al's drink of choice, Amy?
Not a drinking man. I can't say to you that he never ever drank. I don't know that to be the case. I do know that in the almost 30 years that I was there, never had a drink in my presence. Even when we were out to dinner with groups of people and other people were enjoying wine or whatever, Al didn't drink.
I love that. But he did have a specific meal, right, that he always had in his office at the end of every day?
There were a variety of specific meals. I mean, there were times he would eat X, times he would eat Y. And, I will say that my absolute favorite meal story about him, if you will, is how really kind and caring and he was, and how he went out of his way for me. I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat anything that was alive. And people immediately say, but Amy, plants are alive. I think we know what I mean. And when we would be out, whether it was at a league meeting or a business dinner or a social function, he always went out of his way to say, do they have something for Amy? And that really resonated with me.
That's awesome.
How about a John Madden story for us? Tell us a John Madden story. As you know, and all of you know, the John Madden Memorial was this past Monday. What was your favorite John Madden story?
This may stun you. I behaved poorly at a Madden Mariucci bocce tournament. Every year, Steve and John teamed up and had a bocce tournament. The proceeds, of course, went to charity. Well, I'd never played bocce in my life. I'd never even heard of bocce until this tournament. But, of course, we all jumped in cars every year. We went over to the bocce tournament to support John and Steve in their efforts. Well, never having played bocce, not even knowing what bocce was, one year I decided, you know what, I'm going to coach our bocce team. I'm going to be the coach. So our players were all there, and I decided I would coach them. Well, we won. We won the whole damn tournament. We knocked Madden's team out, and they were, I think, the reigning champs. Well, I went running around the court with my arms extended straight in the air over my head. Kids tell me that's called flexing. Well, I went running around the court like a little nut celebrating. And I mean, I'm like running up and John was there. I'm like running by him with my hands in the air. You know you're behaving poorly when Willie Brown, comes running over and puts his hand on your shoulder and he's like, calm down, Amy, calm down. But I didn't calm down. So
I love it.
A couple days later, I picked up the phone and I called John because I started thinking about the expression on his face when I was doing that. And I told him how magnificent the tournament was. And I said, look, I'm sorry about my behavior at the end. It was a bit over the top. Well, he let me know it was a bit over the top. And he let me know in no uncertain terms that my apology was due and owing, which it was. And he accepted it, and we went on to laugh about it for many years.
So what did he say to you? I need more insider information.
I think it just sounds like he was upset he lost. He was probably the reigning champ.
Look on his face. You guys, I was behaving. To say that it was poor sportsmanship is an insult to poor sportsmanship. I was just reveling in our win and carrying on. And I kind of loved it, but then the expression on his face, if looks could kill, it really would have killed. So I called him up mostly to thank him for, the tournament and the money they were raising and, to talk about that and to say, oh, and by the way, if I overdid a little bit, sorry about that. And he said, yeah, you overdid a lot. And we laughed about it and we went on from there. But it became a source of humor for us for many years.
Amy's on my team. That's what I know. I've just learned that Amy Trask is competitive as I am. And like when you win like a really great like horseshoe match or something, that's the way I behave. Absolutely.
Well, here's to us then. But, when Willie Brown, who was the king of unsports, I remember once this is really bad, but it was way, 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 way before CTE was an issue or injury. But early in my career, Willie was one of our coaches, and we're playing a game, and we knocked the opposing quarterback out of the game. Not with a head injury, not with a serious injury, but we knocked him out of the game. And Willie Brown is standing on the sideline, and he's looking at the opposing team and saying, roll him off, get another. So when Willie Brown tells you you're over the top, you're over the top.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. When I beat my 10-year-old in tennis, I give a fist pump. I'm like, you take that, Cooper. Your mom, who's your mother? I am. You must be so horrified. So that's a little window into my motherhood, everybody.
That's awesome. That is absolute. I wish you could see the smile on my face. That's great.
Yeah, you can't let them win.
You got to show that 10-year-old
You can't let them win.
And if you're not embarrassing your children, you're really not doing something right.
No. Oh my gosh, I'm going to bring the mimosas to you. We're going to go on a tour.
Oh, that'll be good. We should do a tour. Of us.
Well, Amy, you know what I said was there's 3 women on a TV show at the same time. With the police may be at the door, and even we could take the show on the road.
Have we broken the internet yet?
Yeah.
By the way, look, this is personal business, and obviously you need not answer this to anyone. But I'm just saying, when I'm listening to the fact that Rich is in Hawaii and you're doing the work for him, I think you might need my representation.
Well, you do represent my dogs. You do represent my dogs and dogs everywhere on the internet. One of my favorite reasons that I actually look at your Twitter, I'm not allowed to have a Twitter because I'm a little bit of a hothead.
Oh, I went after some people this week. I don't usually, but I did.
Yeah, you gave a couple goons some platform, I was going to say.
Oh, no, I don't. One of them already had a blue check and just needed to have that blue check, smack him upside the face.
Yeah, how'd that feel?
Every once in a while, I usually don't engage the goon machine, but every once in a while, you just
got to do what feels right in the moment.
Exactly.
I will tell you guys, though, I insist in my Twitter village that when we disagree with one another, we do so agreeably. And very, very relatively few times has there been someone who's responded to me in a really, really nasty manner. And when I reply back, I say, look, go ahead and disagree with me. We can have different views, but you don't need to be mean. And, of course, I sound like an 8-year-old saying, don't be mean to me. But I'll write back. And with, only 1 or 2 exceptions, the people to whom I've written that have written back and said, you know what, Amy, you're right. We can disagree with one another, but I didn't need to be nasty about it. I could have expressed my disagreement more. So we're going to change the world through Twitter.
I agree. Through Twitter, 140 words at a time.
Right.
Nobody ever apologizes
to me. Different opinions are fine.
Saying.
Different facts, not so much.
No.
That usually gets me.
Amy Trask here on the Rich Eisen Show. Suzy Shuster, Kara Henderson-Sneed with me. Since you bring up social media, let's just switch really quick for 1 or 2 housekeeping things. What's your take on the Kyler Murray situation in Arizona of a player scrubbing his Instagram, Cardinals kind of playing back this tit for tat? What's your take on this as someone who ran a team?
Well, for one of the first people that I thought of when I saw all of that going on was Herm Edwards, who would just say, don't hit send. And I realized in this instance it wasn't hitting send, but it was scrubbing accounts, deleting things. The point being, take a moment, think about what you're going to do on social media, whether it's by commission, writing something, or omission, deleting someone. Be careful. Take a deep breath, because all of that is picked up upon and it resonates. And look, we don't know what the future is going to be for Kyler and for the Cardinals. I have thoughts on that as well, but I would just say to anyone, and this includes everyone in my village, real life, Twitter, otherwise, be judicious in what you do on social media, because it resonates, and it can resonate in a manner in which you don't intend it to resonate, or maybe you do intend it to resonate, but you really shouldn't.
So what are your thoughts then?
Well, my thoughts are as to the team, they've got to ask and do what? Whenever I hear of a team that is thinking of moving on for a quarterback.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm not suggesting that Arizona is thinking about that, but should Arizona think about that? Should Green Bay be considering that with respect to Aaron? And we all know it's being considered in any number of ways. Should any team ever be considering moving on from a player? You've got to ask yourself the question, and do what? And if you don't have an answer to that, or the answer you come up with is not at a minimum as good as, but hopefully better than the status quo, then what are you doing? Throughout my years in the league, I would hear from fans, you should get rid of this quarterback. By the way, as if that was my choice. There's this guy named Al Davis. You might want to talk to him. But, anytime I would hear a fan say, you need to get rid of this player, you need to get rid of this coach, and do what? You've got to have a plan. Look, I had a terrible, terrible incident on a horse many, many years ago. And the reason I raised that is when everything got resolved and I was fine and the horse was fine and everything was, calmed down, someone looked at me and said, Amy, you have to have a plan. Mm-hmm. And she was right. She was also 8 years old at the time. But, we really do need to listen to 8-year-olds more. But my point is, you got to have a plan. You can't just say, I'm going to move on from a quarterback without asking and answering and do what. And as far as Kyler goes, he needs to also recognize that while a player may sometimes think the grass is greener elsewhere, it may not be. Maybe it will be, but it's not always greener elsewhere.
I mean, isn't that what we're seeing right now playing out in front of our eyes with Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay and possibly Denver and myriad other quarterbacks out there that are seeing the grass and thinking, does it look lush or does it look greener?
Is that wild to you, Amy, that there are this many franchise-level quarterbacks that are being moved around? It's so different than the way that it used to be.
It is different, and of course it's because the structure of the collective bargaining agreement is different. Oh, the world is different. But you're absolutely right. It is very, very different in many regards. And I think I've stopped being surprised. And I say that, and, an hour from now something will surprise me. But, there is a lot of movement, more than there used to be, and it's not always beneficial to the team or to the player. I think there's more movement than there sometimes need be. As to Aaron Rodgers, I've said it on air. I'll say it again now. I wouldn't be stunned to see him stay in Green Bay. We hear all of this every year. Where's he going? Is it Denver? Is it here? Is it there? I wouldn't be surprised if it's remaining in Green Bay.
Well, they brought in his quarterbacks coach for a reason, right? They brought him back to work with him.
Well, and he loves Matt LaFleur. Those two are, like after their initial, I think, thing where, he's like, well, no, I'm going to audible. And Matt's like, that's not what we do. And he's like, well, that's kind of what I do. And I've been around for a while. Like, they really do have a close and tight relationship. So that's interesting. Now, I have no idea what was said after the whole thing that occurred last year, if there was a backroom deal made that I'll do another year or how it went. We don't know that. And that's what you learn being on this side of the equation is what people think they know and what's actually true. Right, Amy? It's like the iceberg effect. It's like people only know 10%. They don't know the 90% that's going on behind the scenes. So we don't know what was agreed to. Do you think that they should have told him that they were going to draft Jordan Love?
Oh, I absolutely do. But I want to say first that I wish I could jump through this phone line right now and throw my arms around you and give you a hug and toast you with a mimosa. The one that didn't get delivered to me.
I'll drink one for you.
That's our bad, Amy. I'm sorry.
It's actually Chris Brockman's bad, personally, but that's really me. I don't want to blame him.
You just said that which so many others really most don't acknowledge, which is we don't know everything. And I love you I love you for a lot of reasons, but for doing that, for stating that, which is, a lot of times people are offering this view and that view, but they need to say going in that which you just said, which is we don't have all the facts. We don't have all the information. So we're trying to gather as much as we can and make informed decisions without all the information. As to the Jordan Love question, absolutely, positively. When the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, They picked up the phone and they called Alex Smith ahead of time and said, look, we just want you to hear this from us directly. This is what we're planning to do in the draft. If he's available to us, this is what we want to do. And they had the respect for him and the collaboration with him to let him know ahead of time. And you know what? When they won the Super Bowl, the first or one of the first people that Patrick thanked was Alex Smith for being the teammate and the mentor he was and for helping him in every way he could. And it is my view that the Chiefs created the environment. I'm not suggesting Alex wouldn't have done so otherwise. By all accounts, he would have done so for anyone. But the Chiefs cultivated that environment of cooperation and collaboration. There is absolutely no reason in the world why Aaron needed to learn that with the rest of everybody on television.
Especially not Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, we all know enough about him to know that, like, disrespecting him in that way, like, trust needs to be built with him. And so to do that, it was just very interesting to me. But I think that about, being on this side of the equation, you and I kind of flipped around. And so you get to see both sides of it. But being on this side of the equation, what you really learn is that players may not always like what you're going to tell them. But when you're open and communicative with them and you respect them and they don't feel disrespected, like, trust is the biggest thing that you build with players on your team. And they may not like it. Like, Les is very good about having very hard conversations with people, but they always appreciate it.
I agree with you absolutely, positively, entirely in all regards. And I will tell you a story in that respect. It was the day of the draft, the first day of the draft. This is 1 year while I was with the team, 1 year in particular. And we were getting ready to make our pick, but to effectuate what we wanted to do, we were going to trade a player on our roster. And Al Davis picked up the phone and called him personally to deliver that news. He didn't assign it to someone else. He didn't let someone, he said, no. Before we announce this trade, I'm calling this player personally. And this was not a quarterback. This was not, a player who was in the spotlight. This was one of the men on the 53-man roster, a good player, an important player, but he wasn't what fans would refer to as a celebrity or a star in that regard. But Al wanted to tell him personally. So when you talk about respect and delivering news a player may not wish to hear, but delivering it personally, it makes all the difference.
Amy, I had to walk out of the room when Les was calling Jared Goff last year. I couldn't stay for it. He's like, I'm making the call, and I was like, I have to leave. Like, that's the part of it. When you fall in love with these people, it's really hard when then the business part of it comes into play. And I can't say enough about Jared Goff. And let's be clear, he was one of the first people to text the Whitworths when we made the Super Bowl. So sometimes it's the worst conversation ever, but you have to have it.
And Amy, you've been on both sides of all of these conversations for so long, and I know that you were loved for your directness, not only being the Princess of Darkness, because I wish I had a nickname like that, but that was always
the way. Oh, you do? You just don't know it.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Well, just stop right there, because nobody will ever have as good a nickname as Princess of Darkness. I'm just going to say it.
It's brilliant.
Listen. And I tell Stink this. Stink, okay, that's a good nickname, but it's not Princess of Darkness, because in my view, and of course I'm saying this with a giant smile on my face, because everyone should love their nickname, but in my worldview, there is no greater nickname than Princess of Darkness, and you should be very, very afraid of me.
Well, I'm so afraid of you, all 5'3" of you. I'm scared to death. When I knock on the door later and there's a note that says POD, answer the door. It'll be me with Champ and OJ, okay?
Okay, come on over, you guys. I'll be here.
Amy, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.